go ahead and get started here. Today, I'm conducting an interview with James Carner. He's a premier private investigator of spam advisories. He's held sales and marketing positions for software and telephony giants such as Epicor Software and Lucent Technologies in the 90s. And for the past 25 years, James has been servicing publishers and affiliates with email assistance, dynamic offers, targeted data, effective landing pages, form page leads, and since 2009 has been exclusively performing real-time API email list hygiene for customers with ehygienics.com and verify550.com. Welcome, James.
Hi, Kalan. It's good to be here.
So I've got to be honest, when we first talked, I had never heard of email hygienics before. So before we get into like exactly what that is, how did you get into a category that's not something that everybody's absolutely heard of? Did you fall into it? Tell me the origin story.
Well, I started working for a small lead generation company in Central Oregon called the Power Group back in 2003. And what they did was they generated leads for a company called Prepaid Legal. And my job for that company was to go out and find email marketers. And over the years, I started, adding email marketers to this Excel spreadsheet. I would say probably before I left the company and started my own, probably around 1,000 to 2,000 email marketers that I had full connect with. And we would send them campaigns and they would send the campaign and we would pay them on a weekly basis via cost per acquisition or a CPA. Did that for a long time, made the company a lot of money. And I kind of decided to start my own thing. And I metamorphosed from that to selling this list of email marketers to email marketers. And that's how I actually started making money to fund what is my mothership called Quickie Marketing. And Quickie Marketing was selling these email marketing lists to email marketers. And a lot of these email marketers were telling me I should get into email marketing. So as I did, I started doing what is called reverse mortgage leads for banks. I wrote the PHP code, the programs, the form page leads, and sent the leads to these clients in real time. We had a list of about 8 million senior citizens that we email marketed to, and it caught the interest of a company called Spamhaus. Spamhaus is the largest anti-spam organization in the world. And what they did was they convinced our hosting provider to stop hosting us, and I pretty much lost everything. So with that, I decided to do some investigation on Spamhaus and started doing investigation on email marketing and trying to figure out what's the best way to email without getting in trouble, and to do it correctly. And I figured out that you got to remove spam traps, you got to remove complainers, people who actually, I call them protesters, but the industry calls them complainers. And a protester is a person who will go directly to the email service provider and complain, say you're spamming. And so, when you have these huge amounts of lists that you market to, you have to scrub and clean up these lists as the feedback comes in. So what I ended up doing was I started this email list hygiene company, and this email list hygiene company grew from eHygienics to Verify550 right here, which is our verification platform that actually removes bounces. So we actually have two hygiene companies. One is eHygienics, it's spelled EHYGIENICS, and the other is Verify550, because eHygienics removes what we would call the validation portion. The threats are anywhere from bots, complainers, seeds, traps, sleeper cells, syntax errors, all kinds of things that are inside emails that people didn't even realize. And even to temporaries or roles would be like info at, webmaster at, or NOC at. And we have huge long lists. In fact, we've got 9 gigabytes worth of suppressions that we scrub against, on top of all the real-time stuff where we check against the MX record, we check if there's a working website. And to Verify550, we actually go beyond that and do an SMTP handshake. And that verifies if the emails are, if it's deliverable or if it's a bounce. And if it is a bounce, what type of bounce. So yeah, it did kind of metamorphose, and I kind of fell into all of this. And when we started doing this back in 2007, we were the second company in the world to offer email list hygiene online. And we built an online platform. And ever since then, This little niche has grown from just 2 companies back then, who was me and a competition, all the way up to around 100. There's a little less than 100 email list hygiene companies worldwide.
Wow. So this industry literally just kind of grew out of nothing. It just really came out of the need of that kind of the fledgling email marketing and that sort of thing.
It did.
It's kind of insane just like seeing that opportunity. So you started out collecting lists of marketers, and then you sold lists of marketers. Then you got into email marketing, kind of started to experience some of that pain that was happening. And that's something that I've talked to the group about before, about making sure that you absolutely own the traffic that you're grabbing in some form, because one thing and it could just all be gone, and that's exactly what's happened to you.
Yeah, well, the biggest problem for email marketers is the junk folder. These email or these internet service providers, there's 30,000 worldwide, and out of the 30,000, 70% of them use high-end blacklist filtering technology, and with that, the email that gets sent, whether it doesn't pass one of its red flags, it gets just sent directly to the junk box. And we have found that by removing a lot of these, complainers, traps, bots, seeds, and all of these validation threats, email marketers actually get in the delivery, in the inbox, and it bypasses those filters. And that's a good way to like, for example, if a client just has all their bounces removed anyway, and they have a newsletter of like 50,000 records, and they're wondering why their opens are only, at 1%. Sometimes there are sleeper cell emails in there that need to be removed. And when you remove those spam fighters that are monitoring you, and what they would call like a chew toy, they're just chewing you up because they know that you created your list not just from scratch, but you kind of blended in a few harvested emails that you found online, and you played around with the gray or blacklisted area, and so therefore they're going to punish you. So they don't like it when you're not playing by the rules. So with List Hygiene, we're able to scrub and remove those types of threats and help an email marketer play by the rules.
So now, if we're building our lists by offering our own products and services, strictly using our own lead magnets, and we've done all of our list building 100% in-house, do we still need to be worried about some of these things?
Well, it really depends. It's all about your audience, and if your audience really knows who you are and the creatives that they're receiving. If you have, let's say, maybe it's a bad analogy, but let's say you sell a can of tomato juice, and that's what you sell. You sell tomato juice all day long, and everyone knows your brand and the type of tomato juice. And you have a company that comes in and says, I want to buy that list and email a can of asparagus, right? Now, the can is the same, it looks the same, and maybe even the logo and everything looks the same. But as they start to email market their asparagus product into a tomato base of consumers, that they don't recognize that. So it's all about your audience. If 100% of all of those emails recognize who you are, you should not have a problem. But if you stop emailing for, say, a month to 2 months, the bounces can start to add up, because the average lifespan of a business-to-business email address is less than a year. So, or the average consumer email address could be temporary, maybe could be up to 2 years. So it really depends on a lot of graphics that you're looking at, a lot of data that you're looking at. But the longer the email sits, the more susceptible it is to becoming a bounce or a bad email or a non-existent mailbox. So when you let your list sit, you got to scrub it. If you purchase a list, or if you rent a list, or any of those types of ways, you have to scrub it. There's no way around it. You're going to upload it into any of these ESPs, and they're going to know, because we have at least 10 email service providers hooked up via API to our suppressions. And when a list gets uploaded into their system and the client hits the send button, it actually stops them before sending and tells them to go scrub their list because they found a bunch of nefarious emails inside there. So that's the future right now of email service providers. They're using hygiene companies like us in order to prevent them from hurting their domains and IPs.
Gotcha. So, in that it really helps the domain hosts kind of stay off of that permanent blacklist by making sure that all of their users are scrubbing before mailing and,
Yep.
and things like that.
Yeah, a
That's
lot of
awesome.
them do shared hosting. So if they're, you could have 10 companies using one block of IP addresses. And as they're emailing, if one of them does any type of nefarious email marketing, could hurt the entire batch. And so IPs are starting to get more and more expensive. So it's not easy just to switch out IPs anymore. So yeah, it's definitely become a necessary evil in this industry.
So, what are some of the best practices beyond scrubbing that affiliates and network marketers could be using to make sure that the email is clean and deliverable?
That's a really good question because that goes a little bit above email list hygiene. And since we've been in the email list hygiene world, our job is to technically figure out if an email is deliverable or not. There's a lot of tricks and a lot of artificial intelligence involved in filtering email addresses. For example, Google and Hotmail and AOL and Yahoo, who are now the same entity. In fact, AOL I'm not sure if it was sold to Yahoo, but I know that there's some partnership, and Yahoo is controlling all of AOL's postmaster information. So, but they have these sophisticated, very expensive artificial intelligence filtering, spam filtering techniques, so where it's learning software, and when spam comes in, they're able to filter it out. And a lot of these companies also share information together, so that in that pool they can share that information and help to cut back on the amount of data and information coming into their streams. So in order for you to inbox and you have a creative, I'll just kind of go through the step. First, before you clean the email, you have to have some type of a campaign. You have to have a creative that you send from A to B, where you generate your traffic. You most definitely would want to have a subject line that isn't spammy. You don't want to have words like free in it, or words like, act now and things like that. There are types of programs you can use like Spam Assassin, where you can send your email into it and it can critique how spammy all the content creative is before you actually start using it. And there's other sophisticated ones out there too as well. And so from there, then you go to the email list hygiene, where if you have a good company, and we have two of them, and the reason why is because eHygienics focuses on very big bulk data. It works great for data companies who resell data. So before they actually give the data to the client, they scrub it up and make it so that it's at least deliverable and hand it to them. And they can jack up the prices too after scrubbing. So it's a good little service for them. And then Verify 550 removes the bounces. It's for the smaller types of lists, your newsletters, etc. But after you've got a creative that's less spammy, you scrub the list, you remove your seeds, your bots, your complainers, your litigators, your traps. And we have a lot of litigators. In fact, there are a lot of states, 3 to name just a few of them, who have pretty strict spam laws. So if you spam into them, they have every right to sue you. And the litigation doesn't go far. It literally just goes to a negotiation where they just pay the fine, and the fine is usually around $5,000. So that's the risk that email marketers take when they do email marketing. And then so you have your creative, you make sure it's not spammy, you scrub the list, then you have to have an actual email service provider who has clean enough IPs and domains. And that's really, really dependent on how much money you spend to send your emails. The more money you spend in this industry really means the more you will inbox, because the cheaper it is, the more spammy associated those IPs and domains are. I've seen programs that only cost like $100 to send 1 million records. to me, that would be iffy. It costs us alone hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars just to verify if 1 million email addresses are legit or not. We're talking about, Hotmail, AOL, and MSN, and all of those large ISPs where they have sophisticated algorithms. If we attack them from one area of IPs and domains, they will immediately block and shut it down because they recognize it's coming from somewhere, and it's more than 3,000 per hour or whatever threshold there is. So with the ISPs and their artificial intelligence, and the ESPs with their domains and IPs, and the mail transfer agent or MTA software program that they're using to send the email in bulk, that has a lot to do with the throttling techniques of them throttling into all of those huge ISPs with the artificial intelligence. And forgive me, I know people tell me I'm way too technical. I can't help it. It's just, that's where my brain goes. And to me, I think, I'm the dumb guy. But so the more you spend, like, for example, if you're going into companies like MailChimp, Constant Contact, Aweber, all of those types who take great care in whitelisting and making sure that their IPs and domains are absolutely clean before you send your email. Those are all of those things grouped into one that helps you get in the inbox and get better deliverability, more opens and clicks, etc. I hope that
Gotcha.
answered your question.
It did, actually. Very well. Now, if I'm just getting set up for the first time, if I've never done an email list before and I'm getting ready to start building my list, and I want to make sure that my MTA is ready to go, that whatever place that I'm using, whether it's Aweber or SendGrid or Mailgun or whoever's getting used, is going to give me the highest chance of my messages delivering just from the technical perspective. Mm-hmm. Is there a list of places where these places are ranked in terms of their overall deliverability versus just the mail list? So I know if, like, for an example, if I sign up for Aweber, that Aweber isn't going to become the bottleneck in my deliverability. Mm-hmm. Is there a place where we can find that out, or do you have a couple of mail providers that you really have had good luck with that you would recommend?
Well, that's a really good question, but it's really hard to answer because each mail transfer agent software or MTA or program like Mailgun or RoboMail or Interspire or those types that people can use, those email or that software gets traded back and forth between other email marketers. And in order to throttle correctly into these really hard to get into ISPs, they tweak them, right? So it's pretty rare to get a hold of an MTA unless you go directly to the company that hasn't been hacked. So okay. If you're using a hacked version, chances are it's already been used up. And there's really nothing you can do with that system. You're not going to get into your Yahoos and your AOLs and MSNs, et cetera. You may be able to get into cables, but the bottom line is, they're just, you have to constantly keep up with the trends of what are the thresholds of one IP, how many emails through that one IP and domain can you get through into those large internet service providers. So, and on top of that, there are some great companies out there that provide the MTAs who have enough money to monitor and be the quote unquote postmaster and the ingenious person who keeps up with all of the ISPs and what types of I would say thresholds that they allow into their ISP, and everyone's different and it always changes. So what I've seen for success in this industry are people who will use an MTA to get most of the basic bad stuff out, and they pull their opens and clicks and they upload them into companies like MailChimp or Constant Contact. And those types of ESPs, email service providers, either have direct relationships with those large ISPs, or they figured out a way to bypass their filter and get bulk email through. But getting those lists up there through their ingenious artificial intelligence systems, sometimes even scrubbing doesn't work. So we found that there are the top best ones that can get whitelisted, and then there are those that are a little bit below and they're a little less expensive, but they actually do a pretty good job. And most email marketers that I know of, they've got accounts in like 20 different ESPs. And if one goes down, you got another one up and running. And that's just the game that they play. And they manage all of their suppressions in one appending platform, where all of their data is placed into one spot. And every time they send an email, they have their date, time stamp, IP, and source connected with it, and the date and time of when they sent it, and the ESP that they send it through, so they can track these things and then know what the best move is through the data that they're looking at in regards to setting up their next campaign and go for the best traffic. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yep. So then, is there AI that you can get from the marketer side that helps to manage those types of numbers and kind of do some of that busy work? I would say it's busy work. It's important, but it's very time consuming. I would imagine from the manual perspective.
So far, I have not seen any learning technology from an MTA that I would consider and say we can put a stamp right on that. That is definitely AI. And the little history and knowledge that I understand about artificial intelligence, there are two types. I don't want to go into it, but one of them is more built for heavy processors. We're talking, quantum computers, quantum computing, and the other one is just more of a learning technology. And what we did with our third generation of eHygienics, which is our validation portion, we don't do the actual SMTP handshake with eHygienics, but it removes all the traps, all the complainers. It just doesn't do like 100% bounce removal. But in order to speed it up, if someone uploads a list of 1 million records, to match and remove against, basically 1 billion lines of code, we have to do that in real time via API. So we built what's called a learning program. So it would be on the cusp of AI. Some engineers would argue that it's not. Some would argue that it is. As it learns, it adds new code to the code. So yeah, that's what we would consider AI for list hygiene, and we're actually launching that program next week. It's eHygienics 3.0, brand new website, brand new application, front end and back end. I'm really excited about that. But as far as email service providers and learning technology, I'm sure they have something similar to what we're going to be rolling out next week.
So it's kind of in its infancy then. Nothing that would be really friendly to the beginning marketer. So somebody that's just
nothing that
into it.
Email marketers are very closed up, and they will never share their secrets. Period. if they found a way that they can get email through and in bulk, they're going to shut their mouths and they're going to just hammer it until it starts to die off and their numbers start to go down. Then they're going to box everything up, put a pretty bow on it, stamp on a new company logo, and go sell it. That's how it's always been.
I guess that makes sense. As soon as everybody knows about it, it gets shut down that much faster, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I would assume that there are companies out there that have that learning technology on the cusp of AI, or they're still working on it and it's just about there and they're about ready to hit the button. But eventually, yes, we're going to be talking about this. I would say within the next 1 to 2 years, AI technology will be introduced to the MTAs, because the ISPs are unfortunately, way ahead of their time. They've got more money than the email marketers. They've got more time than the email marketers, more employees than the email marketers, and most definitely the better technology. So
that I can understand that. It seems like we've got a lot of growing to do in order to get to the point of catching up to them.
Yeah, it's a cat and mouse game. and always has been since 1996.
So all of the different things that are hidden kind of in the email list, take me through some of them. And you mentioned a few of them, but what actually are they? What do they do? What's the point of them?
Okay, so bots are emails that can open up open up a creative and hit the click or hit the buy now button, right? That would be considered an open and a click. A lot of affiliates will charge for opens and clicks and charge, or on a CPM level, charge it to their customers. And what email marketers have figured out to do is they wrote these malicious bots that when you email into those bots, it'll automatically open that creative, and then they can take the money for it, even though it's not a real person. So we would consider those bots. We get in anywhere between, I would say, 100 to sometimes 2,000 bots on a weekly basis of either a domain or IP or an email address, and we put those into our algorithm. So bots are, malicious opening computers that just open an email and says, yeah, I'm a person, I looked at your ad, and then the affiliates and the email marketers get paid for it. It's malicious. Two would be seeds. Email marketers, data providers, people who like and appreciate their list, they seed their list. They're going to put an email that's in there that only they own, and they haven't shared that email with anybody else. They don't use the email to fill out forms. That one email, its purpose was built to be put inside a list. And when any email comes in to that email from some other third or source, it means that that list has been compromised. So it's a way of protecting that database. And there are types of seeds that you can find via regular expression, and there's types of seeds that you can find through an algorithm that we built proprietary information in order to find and remove those types. Some seeds can be dictionary, alphanumeric types of emails, but getting rid of those types of seeds as well can, we have a demand and a need for it from our clientele. There's another litigators. There's over 3,000 litigators in America alone who sue an email marketer if they send an email to them and cannot prove that that person filled out a form and gave them their consent. Therefore, we have a huge demand for us to remove litigators from our email lists or from our suppressions. So we research, we find out who those litigators are, we find their domains, IPs, and email addresses, and we add them to our algorithm. And so bot seeds, litigators, spam traps. There are over 500 anti-spammers or spam fighters worldwide. Their job is to cut down on bulk emailing and cut down on the black hat world of spam. And if you're an email marketer and somehow you find that you have a list that was either whitelisted or graylisted, and there was a spam trap in there, you could get in trouble. You could get on blacklists. So we have a demand for people asking us to remove those types of traps. So we go out, we research, and we investigate. We find domains, IPs, strings, any type of information that is related, and we add those to our algorithm. And then you have what's called protesters. The industry calls them screamers or complainers. These are people who get angry and they voice their anger at the email marketer or the email service provider, and that information gets added to our suppressions. We probably have anywhere between 100 to 200 in any given month email marketers who share with us suppressions. And the reason why they share with us their suppressions is because we give them deals on email list hygiene. So we're able to keep up pretty well with the game. And then you have your bounces, which are, you have two different types. You've got soft or hard bounce. Soft bounce can be OTO, I'm out of the office, or it can be, I'm on pregnancy leave, or whatever the reason be, that when you send an email, you get a message back saying this email is kind of in hiatus right now. So temporary emails, bounces, et cetera. Those types we remove, and we tell the client what type of a bounce it is. The hard bounces, which be like a 550, verify 550, that's exactly what it is. We verify not only is it clean, but we also verify if it's a 550 or what type of a bounce it is. So that's why we named it 550. Go ahead.
So the 550s don't exist, right? Those are just okay.
Yeah, it's we separate every email, and we name every single email what it really is. If it is a spam trap, what type of a spam trap it is. If it is a litigator or whatever, we divulge more information than most email list hygiene companies that are out there. So and then you have strings. I kind of mentioned that a little earlier. That strings are like swear words, types of email messages that are inside an email address that just doesn't belong. And so we're really good at, with our system, to find swear words, the F word, and all types of different ones without compromising the email, because there are words that are a real word, but there's a swear word inside it, but it doesn't necessitate the right to take that email away. So we've been really good at removing those types of strings. And also strings have to do with bots and seeds. If they're alphanumeric characters, it looks like just a really weird coded looking email address. We're really good at removing those. And then we can remove lashback seeds. Lashback is a company that helps the affiliate world. If an email marketer is getting creatives from an affiliate and they're changing the subject line, and they're not supposed to change the subject line because it's already been approved by the corporate, Lashback is a type of company that can basically, with their seeds and their emails and their traps, catch that email marketer in action, and they can, whoever reprimands, they do whatever they do. We've had a lot of requests to remove lashbacks. Again, it's, some people would consider email list hygiene. I've heard, it's you're enabling spammers to spam. My philosophy on it is we're not pitching to spammers to come scrub through us so they can get away with it, because most of the good email service providers out there, they know what type of lists that are out there right now that are spamming. So we're not interested in working with the spammers. We're interested in people who have old lists, or people who have gotten a list that's something similar to something in their industry, and they want to figure out a way to make money and grow a list. And we're interested in helping them, and we even consult with a lot of companies on how to take an old list, take a list that they've traded or bought, or even sometimes harvested, which at those times we can tell right away. I can look at one list just with my eyeballs and see right away if that email has been harvested off the internet. And then we can offer them solutions and say, well, you know what, this list is going to get you in trouble. We even after scrubbing, you're still gonna hit stuff, because not all email list hygienes, and in fact all list hygienes, hygiene companies not all of them can get rid of all of the traps, right? Not all of them have the technology and the tools to get everything. We just get as much as we possibly can with our business partners and our clientele, and the technologies that we build every year. And we're on our 3rd generation software, because we've been doing this for over 10 years, and I consider that to be a success.
So each generation, your scrubbing rates are more and more successful.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, and faster too. We have our servers are located here. I'm in a data center called Cascade Divide, and I know the owners here, and I help them with some sales and marketing. And what our servers are located here in the data center, and we have access to our own firewall. Our firewall is military grade encryption. And so we are not interested in keeping data. We don't sell data. That's not what we do. We just scrub and delete, and we do everything in real time, because the GDPR is important to us. California's soon to be data law into place. It's going to be like the GDPR. That's important to us. Canada and their anti-spam policies, and especially with the Can-Spam Act of 2003, we try our best to work with people who are interested in doing the right thing and help them get out of doing it the bad way or the old ways and into the new ways of email marketing and the technology, and to keep it all safe. And I believe that having technology hosted on the cloud isn't safe anymore. Even if the data center on some company, and this is some online company, they never even had access to the data center because it's cloud. They don't know who has access to their information or their clients. And I believe that in the future, we're going to see a switch from the cloud over to home-based technologies, as we're seeing the offices of large companies grow smaller and smaller, but the buildings are so big, but they can't handle because they don't have, they don't have, they've got too much space and they don't have enough clients. And so I believe that the small businesses are merging towards their home, and with that are going to come these home-based businesses with servers in their house, and also data centers in every single city. That's where I think the future is going.
So then, the industry that you're in, then how would you envision the email hygienics working in such distributed environments like that?
Like in a cloud or in a, because since we have control over our technology and our software and it's all proprietary, we own it. It stays on our servers, right? We don't give anyone an application that they can use in order to manipulate our software. So there's no way that they can get into our backend unless they hack us through some form or means, which even by then with our firewall, I'd be shocked that could happen, because we've taken so much precautions on being military grade this time. So so really there's I would say that customers have more confidence in knowing that we own everything, and their data is located, in a place where I have access directly to the servers, and I'm the only one, me personally, managing and monitoring those servers, and I'm the one, switching out the solid state drives when any one of them fails through the RAID system. So that, I think, is more of a controlled environment and less susceptible to hacking versus the cloud.
I would have to agree with that for sure. Anytime you can gate and limit access, there's a lot to say about starting security in that point.
Yeah, well, it's all about what you pay for. Clouds starting to get cheaper and cheaper. And it only costs you a couple $100 to run a SQL environment, right? If you have the SQL keys, it only costs you a couple $100 to run a SQL environment in the cloud, and you can manage and manipulate hundreds of millions of records in an hour. But the problem is who has access to that data center? Who has access to the cloud? How many fiber connections go into there, and how are they all connected, and who set it up? I don't trust it personally. There could be relationships between that data center in China or that data center in Russia. You just don't know who owns what. If China owns a bunch of land in California, who's to say that they don't own data centers in America with an American name and set it up so that they can take information from, all of the clients using them as a hosting provider? And that's another thing we do. We own a hosting company called CentralOregon.online, and Central Oregon Online is a hosting company, and we have a couple servers that we use to host just simple basic websites with WordPress, and give them an email address. And our local pitch around here is, look, keep things local, host your stuff here. If you put it on the large guys like GoDaddy or HostGator or HostMonster, you really don't know if those companies are, because they're large, they're making millions of dollars. Where is that? Is your data really safe on these guys? We've already seen Facebook take your data and go sell it. They've said they've done it. We've seen Dun & Bradstreet get hacked and all of their data being sold. We've seen all kinds of big, large companies with data centers that get hacked. So we're trying to minimize that and give our customers peace of mind, knowing that, again, I have access to the servers. I'm the one that does it. And if you want to come and check it out, I'll give you a free tour and free lunch.
That's awesome. That goes a long way for security.
It's more expensive on my end, but I think the expense outweighs the risk of putting your secure customer data somewhere in the cloud.
It's really hard to put a price on that.
Right.
Now you said you're getting ready to release the 3.0 version of your product right now. What do you see the scrubbing rates being on 2.0, and how does that compare to what you were expecting the scrubbing rates to move to with 3.0?
That's a great question. And since I wrote the algorithm, the third generation of it, and I've been hands-on with the programmers and hands-on with my IT development team, I'm really excited that what we're seeing between 2.0 and 3.0 is about a 30% difference in speed. eHygienics is a really fast program. It can scrub 10 million records an hour. And what we found after this upgrade is a client now can scrub up to 15 million records an hour. So that means every file that they upload can hold up to 1 million records. We try to keep it around what Excel holds, and it also helps on tethering factors and the scrubbing times. But when a client uploads like a list of just 50 million in one file, it takes forever to upload. So we cut them down into millions to make things a little bit easier. But we in the past, we could have if there was about 150 customers scrubbing files all at once, the system would start to really, and we're talking, a few servers here, the system would really start to kind of drain. And even though the memory we've got 160 gigabyte stuff with 12 quad cores and like $10,000 servers. I'm pretty okay with software. When it comes to hardware, I could put it together, but what it all does, I'm still not really there. But anyway, so a 30% speed increase, and more clients can scrub more data, meaning we can scrub probably at least we can have up to 500 clients at the same time scrubbing files. And we're talking, using the real-time APIs, accessing information, scrubbing against 9 gigabytes within a millisecond, which is pretty impressive in my opinion. And on top of that, we've changed from an FTP environment straight to the drag and drop environment, where it's a really simple user interface. You log in, you just drag and drop, choose how, the types of suppressions I was telling you about, seeds, bots, litigators, screamers, complainers, whatever. Check which one you want to scrub against, and then hit the scrub button. It scrubs it 30% faster. And you could scrub more files, where in the past you could scrub up to 10 files. Now I can scrub up to 20 at the same time. And that's really cool for data providers, because we have a lot of companies, very big companies, companies like Info Group or Dun & Bradstreet, those types of companies would use us to scrub. And before they sell their data or hand their data to clientele, they would make sure it gets scrubbed. Big buys is pretty common in those areas. So they would have to scrub 100 million records right away. Cool thing about eHygienics, it's pretty darn cheap. It's only $1,500 a month for unlimited. You can scrub as much data as you want without having to pay for credits, right? So our clients really love that idea. And the reason why it's cheap, because we're not doing the SMTP handshakes with that, right? That doesn't require all of the IPs and domains on a daily basis that you have to buy with Verify 550 to get rid of the bounces. So it's faster. It's on really cool 64-bit technology. It's got we run in a .NET environment. So with the enterprise SQL Server, there's a lot of thtricks and ways that we were able to use caching to store information that's already been talked about through domains. And we cache domains, and literally within the first week of scrubbing through our clients, we cached 3 billion domains. So we have those on standby for a while, and we know immediately when those domains, actually go live or not live. So all kinds of cool things we do in eHygienics 3.0 that 2.0 just can't touch. And it's the latest technology that's out there now with the latest software. So it's not old software, it's brand new. And we really think that this should last us another 5 to 10 years. So
you mentioned that you guys are running on SQL Enterprise.
Mhm.
Are there any plans to go to memory resident database technologies to help speed
I
things
would
up further?
say, yeah, and on top of that, dabble more into the artificial intelligence. The linear types of databases is definitely an area we want to focus on and try to figure out faster ways of getting from A to Z, and with that costs a lot of money. We've invested about, I would say, $100,000 into 3.0, and we want to make sure that with 4.0 that there's enough clients out there that are still interested in the technology and our product. You bet, that's somewhere where we would want to go. But we had, since we haven't released 3.0 yet, we haven't even sat down and started drafting 4.0. But yeah, it's something we'd like to
get one
do.
thing out the door first.
Yeah, exactly.
So after a list is scrubbed, how much would you estimate it could still be left in a list after it's scrubbed? You mentioned that obviously
Great
it's
question.
impossible to get anything.
Man, I got to tell you, you're like one of the best interviewers I've had in years. I mean, you have great questions. Most of them just ask me really strange, bizarre stuff. Have you ever been to Holland, Amsterdam?
I appreciate that. It probably helps that I do have a tech background.
Yeah, no, it really does.
I work with a lot of different technologies. I've done a lot through the years. I've worked for some big technology companies myself, and work for a smaller company now, still doing software consulting alongside this. So,
well, I appreciate it. It's a breath of fresh air, let me tell you. So to get back to your question, which is a really good one, it really depends on the list. If you have like an old list that's been sitting around for like 3 to 6 months, odds are it's probably around 10% will be removed. We've seen that as the average, even sometimes less than 5%, and they're all just bounces. It'd be pretty rare that it would be any traps or screamers or complainers in there, because the list is familiar with the sender. That's the key. If it sits for a couple of years, more than likely 50%, half of it's going to be removed. If you have a list of, say, 1 million records, but let's just throw an example out here. Let's say you're a real estate agent and you want to buy all of Southern California email addresses, and you want to spam them, and you scrub through us, and after we scrub that, because it was through a data company, who knows how long they've had, one of those emails been sitting in their records, because these data companies, they don't mail to it. They don't check the records. They go through companies like us and scrub it. So we've seen, in the case of, I would say, what would you call that, dormant email lists that get put together and sent in because of a category and sent to some person who wants to email market to it, which I don't recommend, by the way, because it's spam is spam, right? You can't get around that. There are better ways of engaging the audience than just immediately sending them a creative. Let me just put it to you that way.
I want to emphasize real quick, if you guys aren't catching that, build your lists, engage with your lists, be authentic, be right there with people. Don't be adding people to your list that didn't request to be there. Build it organically. Build yourself from the ground up. Don't try and shortcut it. You're going to get yourself in trouble.
I tell all my clients, if you don't have a abuse contact at the bottom of all of your creatives, you're wasting your time. All spam fighters want is a way to contact you. Now, whether they chew you out or not, who cares? They're happy enough to chew you out, cut you a break, period, right? Because they got a hold of someone. Their pet peeve is they call it the whack of mole thing. They're whacking these moles and they're going underground again. They come out with a new alias and a new name. if you just be as transparent with them, saying, look, I'm trying to make a buck. I'm trying to, go legit. I do have, this list. It's, not all 100%, towards me, but I'm trying to, do it. That's all they want. They want to see you try. And if you're not trying, then, what you're doing is you're completely spamming, and you are hurting the industry more than you could ever imagine. The quick couple $1,000s that you make from that, it's not worth it. It just isn't worth it.
Yeah, I
especially for companies. Otherwise, if that was the case, there wouldn't be hygiene companies making millions of dollars scrubbing email marketing lists, because it wouldn't be needed. People would trust the industry, but that's human nature, right? So you can't argue with that.
Absolutely. So now, I guess, how does this tie into to different types of traffic, like solo ad providers?
Solo ad providers?
Yep. Right.
So like just a single person with an advertisement, just sending email?
Yep. I decide that I want a specific creative sent out. They have a list of their people, and they send the stuff in. For an example, I might have an opt-in on my end to try and capture some of that traffic that's actually interested in maybe the thing that they've sent out. How does stuff like that fall into play here? Is that do I need to be careful with my list on the other side at this point, because I don't know where that traffic came from initially?
So you're saying you give them the list and you give them the creative and they send it for you?
No, they have their own lists.
Okay.
I give them the creative, they send it out. Somebody follows the creative through. I have some type of a lead magnet or another way of collecting that email address on the other side.
Right. Okay.
Where they've been sent off. I guess a solo provider, I have no way of knowing exactly how long their list has been sitting, what their list was doing, how they comprised it. Do solo providers put me at risk?
Well, if they're not sending to it every day, they're putting themselves at risk. I would think that if you contacted their one of their clients, ask for a client referral, and then ask them when was the last time they sent to that list, that can gauge, to how long it's been since, this type of a creative was sent to that list, and whether they're being honest or not. It's a good tool to, before you give them your creatives to send to that list, just to, get ready for whatever to expect. If they didn't scrub that list, say for example, they're just, you send it to a bunch of spammers in Morocco, right? Your creative getting spammed, right, with the subject line and the creative, is going to be immediately thought of as a spamming campaign, and the subject line and the creatives and the code, everything that's inside that email is going to be monitored. And so it's a risk to send to an email marketing agency that does not have a track record of revenue, right? Track record. And we're talking like these are that's why there are affiliates. The affiliate's job is to find these type of email marketers and rigorously grill them until they get the information out, getting driver's license from them, which is almost impossible from an email marketer, because man, these guys, they stay quiet and they're underground, and some of them are just 16-year-old kids eating Cheetos, living in their mother's basement, figuring out how to get into AOL.
Right.
So
now, are there any myths that you find in your industry that you really want to bust?
The one thing that I found in this industry is there are two types of names for what we do. People call it validation and people call it verification. And nobody's really taken the time to explain what the difference is. And every email hygiene company that I've spoke to, when they explain it, they even have a different language for it. But I would consider verification would be honestly, in the dictionary, validation and verification, they're pretty similar. They're, in nature. So the real difference is if you're going to clean your email marketing list, can they remove 100% of all the bounces? That's all that really matters nowadays, right? And now, if you're a data provider and you want to scrub an email list and you don't want to spend the $10,000 to scrub 5 million records, you'd want to go through eHygienics, which is the cheaper version, see Unlimited. It doesn't get all the bounces, but it gets about 95%. And that's the cool thing about Verify 550 is all the bounces we remove from here, we put those into eHygienics. So we're adding to eHygienics like every single day. So that's the cool thing about updating eHygienics. But just validation and verification. I would say, my professional opinion would be validation removes all the threats, all of the suppression threats of litigators, bots, seeds, complainers, and syntax errors, and temporary emails, role emails, and all of those types of emails that just don't belong in an actual newsletter list, right? And then if you want to verify if the email is an okay, you can deliver to this, or if it's a complete bounce and they're going to stop you from sending any information into it, that would be considered verification.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
But there's no other thing. It's pretty simple. It's like, you clean my list, I mail, and I don't have problems. If we can continue that relationship, we make money, and that's how we do it.
So is there anything else that you think needs to be talked about that we haven't covered, or anything that you personally want to discuss?
No, I think, like I said, you're a great host, and you had all of the right and perfect questions, and I think addressed every single email marketer's needs, from a small mom and pop shop to a large entity who has millions of records who want to send bulk email. List hygiene has to come inside there. There's has to bridge the gap and wedge that, because you cannot take an email list that has been in someone else's hands and send bulk email to it without getting either on a blacklist or getting shut down by the ESP or having some type of a problem. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely want to avoid that at all costs. It's not good for anybody.
No.
I'm just going to check real quick and see if the stream has any questions for us here. Does anybody have any questions? We'll give you guys a couple minutes to throw some down there.
Yeah, we're located in Central Oregon. We live in a town called Bend. It's the third fastest growing city in America right now. And we are in what's called the Cascade Mountains. We're in the high desert right next to Mount Bachelor and the Three Sisters. We have a beautiful view of these mountains, and we also have access to any type of sports curricular activity that you'd want. Everything from skiing during the day, up on the mountain, or skiing during the day down in the water. It's a really cool area to live in. I'm really excited about being here and being in this data center, and being able to talk to people like you and drum up business for everyone, and I give people knowledge about the industry too.
Yeah, like I said, when we had talked, it wasn't something I had ever even heard of up until this point. Obviously, in my own personal list, I remove undeliverables and all of those things kind of as they come up. And I personally don't buy lists. I do all of my stuff organically, but it's nice to know what things are kind of waiting out there, and that there's other things that I really need to be on the watch for, even the way I am building my lists.
Well, and that's smart. You can't buy a list and have and not have problems. But the interesting thing is, data gets sold in the trillions not in the trillions of dollars, but in the trillions of information on a daily basis. And, every single industry wants a list of people who are interested in that industry, period. So the data gets sold, and you'd be surprised how many people go online to a data company, pick and choose what they want, name, address, phone, email, date, time, stamp, IP source, whatever. And download that list, and they immediately upload it into MailChimp, and they find out that MailChimp's omnivore just shut them down and say goodbye. I don't want We don't want you to ever come here again. We know you're a spammer.
Well,
So
trying to do things the right way. I mean, I really appreciate that these mail services do that. It's hard enough to market in the industry without people hearing like, oh, you send email marketing,
yeah. Well, and competing in this market's really tough because getting inboxed and getting opens and clicks is not as easy as it used to be. And it used to be the Wild West in the email marketing industry back in the early 2000s. It would be so easy to send 10 million records an hour without a blink of an eye, and things have changed, and it's gotten honed down, and the spam fighters have done a really good job in blocking these email marketers whom didn't play by the rules. And I got to be honest, I've had problems with spam fighters in the past, and we have worked on those issues. And because I've had problems and we worked on those issues, I appreciate what they do. It's not an easy job, trying to get someone to stop sending, porn, or stop sending, male enhancement pills or stuff like that. Are you there? Or did I lose you? Looks like I'm in the show, but you're gone. Welcome to the James Carner Show. How you doing? I'm in Bend, Oregon, and we just lost our host. So I'm not sure what's going on, but I think I'm just gonna play a guess that it's a minute we're at 1 hour and 4 minutes. So I kind of think we're probably done. But wow, you still there, host? That's interesting. Let me just check one thing here. Kalan, are you there? Well, I think that may be it. So hope you all enjoyed the show. Oh, wait.
Hey, there we go. Sorry about that. My home internet just decided to completely shut off.
Oh, wow.
It had to switch to my phone.
Oh, I think I did a pretty good job just keeping it going while I wait for you. So,
so I've got just two quick questions for you here. Okay. Just because I think it's important that when we do business with people, we try to establish a little bit more of a personal connection. So, okay. Being that you're kind of a technical guy, you're working in the data center, you've got a programming background, obviously. What is something that people, maybe even people that know you, or the viewers, would be really surprised to find out about you? Something, a hobby that you're interested in, or something that you really get into, one of those guilty pleasures, so to speak.
I am a cigar smoker. I love cigars. I'm a Maduro madman. Anything Maduro, and the fatter, the longer, the bigger the cigar, the better, I think. That's one of my guilty pleasures. On the opposite of that, I understand sign language. That's my son, whom is now, I believe, 11 years old. And my son is deaf and autistic. So I've had to learn sign language in our home, same with my wife. And we've had to work with this disability of autism. And, for 11, going on 12 years now, it's been one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I quit drinking 14 years ago, and I thought that was the hardest thing. But raising an autistic child, my hat's off to anyone who has that in their family. It is the hardest thing in the world to deal with. Not that there aren't harder things in the world, like epilepsy and all types of other things. And I get that too. But autism, it's such a strange, mental game that you have inside this family dynamic. And, everyone wants to solve the problem right away. And, there is no problem to be solved, because in the world of autism, that is their world. And unless we get inside autism and be in their world, we're always going to be scratching our heads and arguing as parents, because we just don't understand that, the way that their world is, it's okay. So accept their world and go jump inside it. And that's what we learned through being autistic parents. But him being deaf, I think, has been an actual blessing in our home, because Oliver, that's his name, he he's so sensory overload that if he did have hearing, I think it would be a lot worse on him. I think it'd be a lot harder, and he'd be one of those kids wearing those earphones, trying to shut the world out because it's just way too loud, you know. And then on a personal level, back in February, I got ordained as a pastor. So on a personal thing, I'm a pastor. I'm kind of like a secondary, just in case pastor for my church, and I'm also the worship leader in a non-denominational Christian church, very, very small. And those are, you know, my things. Now people will either, you know, go crazy or say blasphemer, like, how can you smoke cigars and be in the church? Well, you know, being a person who studied the Bible, nowhere does it say thou shalt not smoke cigars. but someone will quote other things. But, you know, in all honesty, you know, we're all sinners. You know, we all fall
Nobody's
short
perfect.
of the mark. Nope. So, but yeah, and I really think that you know, any religion out there, I appreciate, and I think is awesome, and you know, I will support 100%. I'm not a turn or burn kind of a guy. I'm more or less like, hey, whatever journey you're on, God bless you, go for it. And if you need any help along the way or questions, I'll always be here to help and support you, because I think love is the key to stop all violence and all problems in this world. And I'm not talking about an emotion, I'm talking about an action, right? Where you become available to anybody, where you know, you just get off your butt and you go to a prison and visit someone you don't know and just become a friend. I mean, doing things that are out of the ordinary, that lifts up just one person's life in their life, and you could change that life for good forever, then you have done what your job is as a human being. That's what I feel.
I feel like there's a lot of merit to that. You know, that I try to live my life as a good person, and you know, it's hard sometimes. Sometimes you feel like you're just getting beaten in the face, but I wouldn't do it any other way.
Always, you know. Well, I think of it like this: if there is a creator, an almighty, powerful God that sits on a throne somewhere in heaven, you know, I'm not the kind of guy also that says, you know, this is it, and you got to trust me and listen to me, because, man, I've been wrong. You know, I'm not gonna, you know, take my ego and say, you know, come follow me. I'm not a, you know, Jonestown person. I don't want followers, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
if there is this all being that, you know, I think that of all the hell that I experienced on earth, and I met this being, right, that was and is and always was, I would be appreciative of the fact that then I get to live forever, because I'm going to look back at all this hard time that I had on earth and the struggles and also all of the great things, and I'm going to appreciate, you know, living forever in paradise. And I don't think I'm going to rebel as much in heaven as I did on earth, because I now know what it's like to struggle, you know, and I think, like, maybe, you know, if there are angels out there that did rebel, maybe they never got this opportunity, right? Maybe they never got the chance to, you know, smoke a cigar or just live a little, so they rebelled.
Well, you know, it's our struggles that make us who we are, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, anyway, forgive me for going all preachy on you like that, but yeah, no, it's whatever path you're on, you know, God bless you. Hope that you find peace and happiness, because, you know, if you've got peace, happiness, you got a smile on your face, and, you know, you're a positive person, and you know, people appreciate that and they gravitate towards that. And I think that's what attracts people to religion. It's not what the words say in the book itself, whatever religion it is. It's the person. You know, people are attracted to people, and what do they have that they don't have? And I want that. You know, I want that. That happiness, that joy that person has. And if we all were gurus like that, right? If we all practice, you know, being the Jesus or the Buddhas or whatever, man, this place would be awesome. You know, this place would be amazing.
Definitely. Well, we're a little bit over time. So James, I really appreciate you coming in and talking to us about this. There's a lot of information. I hope that everybody gets something out of it. You know, there's a lot of merit here amongst some of the technical information for those that might be listening to this that aren't maybe quite as technically inclined. really, really think about what you're doing with your lists. So I'm going to open it up to you for just a minute. If people want to get in contact with you, they want to get their email list scrubbed, how are we going to go ahead and do that?
If they want to get a hold of me, they can go to my website, which is going to change next week. It's going to go from 2.0 to 3.0, but that's ehygienics.com, spelled EHYGIENICS.com. That's ehygienics.com. There's an I in the middle of there in the Genix, so don't go to ehygienics.com or you go to men's underwear. So it's ehygienics, IENICS.com. And then there's verify550.com, VERIFY550.com. And that's our verification platform. That's probably easier to remember. And, there's no men's underwear area if you misspell it.
Excellent. Thank you for coming on with us. I'm going to put those links into the descriptions for the live and the show notes for the podcast, so everybody can get to you easy if that's something that they're interested in. Again, it's been great having you on.
It's been wonderful being here. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I hope to be on your show again.
All right. You have a great night.
You too, sir.